Saya mengundang moderator kita pada siang hari yang berbahagia ini. Ada yang kami hormati, Bapak Konstantinos Karachalios, yang tadi sudah kita dengarkan berdialog stream side chat dengan Bapak Menteri Luhut. Bapak Konstantinos ini dulunya adalah Managing Director dari IEEE SA Standards Association. Dan beliau karena bersentuhan dengan teknologi yang sangat menyentuh manusia di seluruh belahan dunia, miliaran jiwa, maka beliau bertekad jangan sampai teknologi itu menyesatkan kita atau menjerumuskan kita. Jadi sekarang misi hidup beliau adalah memastikan bahwa teknologi itu digunakan untuk kebaikan, termasuk salah satu produknya adalah perlindungan data terhadap anak yang sudah diluncurkan. Indonesia termasuk dari 3 negara pertama yang meresmikannya, luar biasa, tepuk tangan untuk kita semua. Selain juga di UK dan di Amerika Serikat, di California khususnya. Pada siang hari ini, Bapak Konstantinos, hello Konstantinos, good to see you again, and welcome.
Hi.
Dan pada siang hari ini, beliau akan ditemani oleh 2 orang pakar. Yang pertama ada Ibu Katina Michael. Ibu Katina Michael ini adalah profesor di Sekolah Masa Depan Inovasi dalam Masyarakat dan juga Sekolah Komputasi dan Kecerdasan yang Terluaskan Augmented Intelligence di Arizona State University. Beliau sudah memegang banyak sekali jabatan akademis yang sangat penting seputar bagaimana teknologi itu akan berdampak pada society, terkait isu-isu seperti national security, keamanan dan ketahanan, serta dampaknya terhadap masyarakat secara luas. Selamat datang and welcome, Katina, to our conversation.
Thank you.
Dan yang terakhir, kita juga dibersamai oleh Profesor Timothy Lomas atau Tim Lomas. Bapak Tim Lomas ini menarik sekali, beliau berbasis di Harvard. Beliau adalah seorang psychology research scientist, seorang ilmuwan yang meneliti psikologi di Departemen Epidemiologi Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Dan beliau itu meneliti bagaimana well-being, rasa kesejahteraan, kebahagiaan manusia itu ternyata didefinisikan dan dipengaruhi oleh hal-hal yang berbeda lintas kultur. Dan cara kita menggambarkannya, bahasanya, cara kita merumuskannya itu juga berbeda. Beliau ingin memahami itu semua termasuk dari perspektif Muslim yang sangat relevan dengan Indonesia dan bagaimana itu bisa menginformasikan cara kita berkembang menjadi masyarakat digital ke depannya. Baik, saya tanpa lebih tunda lagi, kita berikan floor dan mikrofonnya kepada Bapak Konstantinos. Konstantinos, the floor is yours with your esteemed panelists.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to welcome our 2 participants, Tim and Katina. And we have 15 minutes to explain here to the people why digital may make more efficient, but not more happy. And what can be done to have a digital transformation that really is human-centric and makes us flourish. And for this, I would like to start with you, Tim. What does it mean, something to be flourishing a system? It is not the same like happiness. It is not the same like well-being. It is not so. It still sounds a little esoteric. So let us tell us, and whether this flourishing, it is really contextual. Probably it is very different flourishing in Bali or in Estonia, I assume. So how do you come to this? What is relevant for Indonesia and for the digital transformation?
Thank you, Konstantinos, and thank you for inviting me, everybody. It's lovely to join you. So I'm Tim from Harvard, and I'm part of the Human Flourishing program there. And a lot of our work is in trying to think about what we mean by flourishing. And Konstantinos, you've already made some important points, which I would echo in terms of it being systemic and contextual. I think one way I found into thinking about the concept is through metaphor. And I really like the metaphor of a garden or a forest, some kind of ecological metaphor. if a human being could be seen as a plant or a flower or a tree, flourishing involves the person themselves doing well and their environment and the garden. One might say that a person could experience some degree of well-being despite of their environment, even if the environment isn't itself doing well. You might experience a measure of well-being, some measure of happiness. But for us, what distinguishes flourishing, what makes it truly different, it's about the person and their context and their systems, to the point that if the systems weren't doing well, we couldn't truly say a person is flourishing. And I think that shift in perspective is very helpful because, you know, I'm speaking from a position as a Westerner, and I can certainly say in the West, at least in the United States and the UK, where I'm from, our view of human life can be quite individualistic. You know, the focus on the person themselves without paying enough attention really to their relationships, the bonds they're part of, the systems they're part of, their context. It's very much about the person themselves, somewhat in isolation. So one thing we're trying to do by emphasizing flourishing is to draw our attention to context. And I think this is something that's particularly needed in the West, because something else you touched upon, Konstantinos, what good living means will vary from place to place, and we have different ideas and different values and different traditions. So certainly what we're trying to do in the West, at least, is to mitigate and rethink the individualistic perspective that tends to dominate. So to, like I say, take this image of a plant in a garden. We want the garden to do well as the plant. I'll stop there. That's just my initial take, just to say that it is systemic and it is contextual. So I think just that shift in perspective already puts us into a different mindset. You know, it alters our priorities, makes us take care into account of different aspects of what it might mean to flourish.
Thank you, Tim. I will come back to this, but now I would like to address my dear friend Katina. Katina, how can this such flourishing be achieved by, let's say, proper design of the systems that are around us? And is this because right now the systems that are very intrusive in our life and ubiquitous are not designed by us, are designed by others and with purposes that are not always benign, and they have a huge impact on us. And I would like really to say that you do not only speak about these things, but you do them too. And you were, for instance, the chair of a standardization project at IEEE that was about how children can be offered services on the internet that are age appropriate. And this is a design. And so you spend a lot of time there and energy. And I would like to thank you publicly about this. And so tell me a little about your experience and what this means for a country like Indonesia, who are embarking now on a digital transformation, which can run very bureaucratic, also in the negative term, if things are just left to the bureaucrats. What are the elements that need to be included for this to go towards a flourishing society, like Tim has alluded to?
Thank you for the kind words, Konstantinos. And Tim, I'll jump on a metaphor that you began about the garden. And I think while we are building services and applications for everybody, including children and seniors, sometimes we do forget about the natural systems, the biodiverse systems, the gardens, because we are connected constantly, as you said, ubiquitously, Konstantinos, to the internet, to gaming, to other devices. But now we have the online playground. People go somewhere to belong together in groups, and young children now love the online environment, but don't realize that they are being privy to nudge factors that are pushing them to, for example, do in-game purchasing, or pushing them to stay longer on an application, or pushing them to scroll through to another video clip. And we call this persuasive design. And of course, originally persuasive design was introduced with positive connotations. How do we better design systems to serve humans and end users? And as we say, the whole ecosystem, not just users, but also guardians, parents, school teachers. A lot of schools at the moment, in a knee-jerk reaction, are banning smartphones from the classroom because the attention economy has meant that children cannot sit still. We're diagnosing children with attention deficit disorders higher than any time previously, and possibly this has become a fixation due to the proliferation of devices. So the advice I have for governments, particularly the ones that we have instituted there in design processes in the IEEE standard that Konstantinos mentioned, the 2089 that was released in December 21, talks about how we can anticipate what some of the issues might be, the concerns might be by different stakeholders in the community, not just children themselves, as they have a different level of awareness at 3, 5, 7, 9, 15, as young adults, 17, and then as adults. But how do we empower people to contribute to the design of services so that what we have proliferating are things that people need, want, and actually have been treated for risks that have been identified early in the innovation process. So I can think about certain things and think, wow, this is a great thing that could be introduced as a designer. But if I don't engage or consult with multiple stakeholders in society, possibly I will cause externalities, negative externalities. So what we're trying to do through design is anticipate the concerns early, address them. And if we can treat the risk and it's tolerable, we can release the service. If it's not tolerable, we say we leave that on the scrap heap, we put it in a register until we know how to better address it. But they're my opening remarks, Konstantinos. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, Tim, what do you say to this? Have you experienced a digital transformation that made people more happy? And I mean, in your environment, Boston and so on. So what are your practical experiences with designing such platforms and systems?
So I've not personally designed systems, but having interacted with systems, my observation is really just around the pace of change and how new this all is. And I know that's a truism, but I think it has profound consequences. So if you take the physical environment and the cities and the societies in which we live, they have evolved through years, decades, even centuries, building up good practices around, the kind of world in which we would like to live. And it's not perfect. Many places are flawed, but we have developed some degree of understanding about how we should engage in this physical world and what it might take to create a nice city. For example, you wouldn't want advertising everywhere in the city, for example. It's recognized that it should be in certain places, not in others. You might want to save places for parks and for places of worship, for schools. And it's recognized there's these guardrails, and these have been built up, like I say, this accumulated wisdom over years, decades, and even centuries. Then all of a sudden, the creation of a digital world, and it's a blank page, and there is this temptation to rush in and to not absorb the lessons we could learn from how we've structured the world around us. So I would encourage people to, as much as they can, to draw on the lessons of how we've tried to structure society more generally, and think about the safeguards that we have put in place, whether they're legal safeguards or ethical safeguards or even aesthetic safeguards, how we like the world around us to look, and then to try to find ways that we can implement them in a digital environment, because it's a digital world, but it's another form of living. And if we can try and take the lessons we've built up in the kind of external world and implement them. But like I say, it's also new and it's still evolving. So we're really in such early days. So I think we're on a journey to trying to perfect it as best we can.
Very valid points there, Tim. And I mean, if you talk about the experiences we have built over time and so on, they are now overthrown overnight. By
Konstantinos, just to remind, we are at time, but maybe one last round of remarks, if possible.
Oh, yes. I would like to hail the Indonesian government by making a very serious effort to protect children's rights online. Talking about digital transformation, to protect and respect their rights. It is not about protectionism. It is about respecting the rights of for the children, for childhood, to have really a childhood where they can interact with the physical world. And you are now in the process of passing, the law has passed, you are now discussing the regulation. I would really hope to see this happening in this administration. And for whatever comes next, I'm sure that my friend Katina would be really ready to support the Indonesian government and the administration there to implement it. And we will support it as IEEE with all power we have. I would like to thank both of you, dear Katina and dear Tim, for your short but very valuable contributions, and hope to see you in person soon.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
You too, Tim.
Thank you so much, Konstantinos, Katina, and Tim. I hope to continue the conversation when we have more time and dig more into your wealth of experience and knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us at very odd hours in the day. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
Bapak
you.
dan Ibu, sekali lagi tepuk tangan meriah untuk para panelis kita. Kalau boleh saya bantu simpulkan, senior. Ada konsep namanya tumbuh subur, flourishing. Dan flourishing ini berbeda dengan konsep well-being atau kebahagiaan. Apa yang membedakan? Prof. Tim tadi mengingatkan bedanya adalah bayangkan taman atau hutan. Tidak bisa satu tanaman itu tumbuh subur ketika lingkungannya juga tidak tumbuh subur. Betul ya? Itu yang membedakan dengan konsep bahagia secara individual yang mungkin lebih banyak diartikan dalam budaya barat ya, di mana segala sesuatunya lebih individual. Saya sukses, maka saya bahagia. Tapi mungkin kita lupa memperhatikan, dan itu juga pembelajaran dari Ibu Katina tadi, salah satunya bagaimana kita mendesain sistem itu yang mengakui dan mengelola dengan baik dampak-dampak tidak baik yang mungkin termunculkan dari transformasi kita, dari sistem kita. Jangan ditiadakan, jangan ditutup mata. Kalau memang belum bisa diadres sekarang, kita parkir dulu, tapi itu sangat penting untuk tetap kita akui. Kemudian, bagaimana kita mendesain sistem yang partisipatif sehingga apa yang menjadi concern atau kepedulian dari masyarakat banyak itu betul-betul terakomodir dalam apa yang kita rancang bersama. Itulah intinya desain partisipatif. Nah, apalagi dalam konteks kota, tadi penutupan dari Prof. Tim, bagaimana safeguard kita, safeguard itu apa ya, kayak pagar-pagar pengaman. Jangan sampai kita kebablasan secara legal, secara etik, itu perlu kita pelajari betul apa yang sudah dijalankan selama ini. Jangan sampai terbuang pembelajarannya, dan itu menjadi modal kita ke depannya untuk membangun kota dan masyarakat digital yang lebih baik lagi. Terima kasih untuk para panelis kita. Kita sudah hampir menuju kepada akhir sesi 1 ini. Kalau Bapak dan Ibu boleh, mungkin ada yang dari terinspirasi dengan materinya Prof. Tim tadi ya, bahwa flourishing itu sangat kontekstual. Mungkin apa yang bekerja untuk daerah Jawa Barat atau di Jabodetabek, banyak ya ada hari ini yang dari Jabodetabek, betul ya? Akan berbeda dengan apa definisi flourishing untuk teman-teman yang di Indonesia Timur atau di pelosok Pulau Sumatera. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu masing-masing harus punya kesadaran atas apa yang dibutuhkan oleh daerahnya dan masyarakatnya. Kalau boleh slide-nya diisi Bapak dan Ibu, ingat slide-nya, ambil waktu 5 menit saja, kami ingin mendengarkan